Let's give it up for Chuck. I was going to slap his gut when I was walking on the stage, but I didn't think he'd like that. I do need those notes. Oh, take it. How are you guys doing, Pulaski? It is so great to be here. I love Pulaski. This is fantastic. My name is Rochelle. I grew up here. I graduated from Pulaski. I was on the math team. So none of my comedy will be like what you just heard. It's a bit of a nerd. I've been doing comedy for a few years now. And I use the term comedy very loosely because I'm basically a storyteller who kind of runs into a punchline once in a while. So if you want to like get a drink or go to the bathroom, go do your taxes, now would be a good time to do that. But stick around for Nick, because Nick is super funny. You're going to love him. So like I said, I've been doing comedy for a couple years. My first gig was great. I was fired up. I was so freaking ready. I was dressed up. I had good material. But I gotta tell you, it got really weird. A bunch of my family came. There was a priest there. There was a casket in the middle of the church. Some people would call it a eulogy. I had a mic and an audience. That was a gig. It was an unpaid gig, but it was a gig. And I thought, man, this would be super fun if there was not a dead body in the room. So here I am. Thank you. And there was one other litmus test that made me think that maybe I could be funny in front of people. My little brother Jacob was really good friends with a guy named Chris Pulaski. I knew that name would bring some fame. So Jacob and Chris were friends for decades. They were friends in the wrestling program through Pulaski. And if you know Chris, he is a quiet man. He doesn't talk a lot. He doesn't laugh a lot. I don't think he blinks. And we were up at my mom's farmhouse, and my little brother was home on leave from the military, and our childhood dog was dying. Super sad. And Jacob was lamenting the loss of this dog. And he said, you know, his back legs are paralyzed. He can't hear. He's losing his vision. And me, being the caring, supportive sister I am, said, yeah, but he sure plays a mean pinball. And Chris Pulaski lost his shit. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could do this. And it's super cool that we're doing comedy in Scully's, formerly known as... That's right, Zelinsky's Ballroom. The first time I was ever in Zelinsky's Ballroom was on a date. Right? 25 years ago. I was telling this story to my husband and I'm like, I couldn't have been on a date 25 years ago. How old was I? Oh, yeah. I'm old enough to have been on a date 25 years ago. Darn it. So I was going to school in Milwaukee at the time, dating another guy who was going to school in Milwaukee at the time, but we were both from here. And so he was from Pulaski because I wanted to date a man from the old country. And I don't know how to do a Polish accent, so you're just getting my Adam Sandler old lady voice. So we're dating. Our first date was in Milwaukee, fancy Italian restaurant, $30 plates of pasta. It was amazing. He thought it would be great to bring me to a family party for our second date. It was his parents' 50th wedding, or his grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary here. I had to meet like 800 Polish relatives. That's a lot of pressure. He brings me here, I never see him again. And I blame that on 2 reasons. First of all, there was a polka band here. I don't think my triple step was all that impressive. And secondly, in college, I weighed about 117 pounds. I know, hard to believe. And I think I came out here that night and those Polish aunts said, "That woman will die in childbirth." Like, get rid of her now. And he did. And to the credit of the aunts, I almost did die during childbirth a decade later. And I'm not going to tell you guys that story because I want you to stick around for the other comedians. No one wants to hear a childbirth story. No. Animate, no. But I will say this about women who have babies. I think if you carry around a child in your body for 9 months, when you give birth, you should get to not do chores for a while. One man is vehemently opposed to this solution. But if you bring a life into the world, you should not have to scrub toilets for a couple of years. I think this is what I think. But giving birth is more like going to Chuck E. Cheese. You're like, I played skee ball for 3 hours, I have 300,000 tickets. What do I get? And the guy behind the counter is like, I can give you a bouncy ball or a Tootsie Roll. That's it. So that's how that works. I think dating is a weird thing. I'm glad I'm married because I don't know if I could do it anymore. And I will say this, at the risk of losing half the room, the very strong half that was just against the no chores after childbirth. I think women date better than men. And here's why. Here's why, and I think you're gonna agree with me. So men meet a woman, they meet a girl and they're like, she got super drunk, did karaoke, sang all the Journey songs and Steve Miller Band. We should have kids. That doesn't make sense. They're like, you know what? She took that cherry stem and did that knot thing. I bet she's gonna make me casseroles for 30 years. That's some reverse Cinderella business right there. But women, we're a little more strategic, aren't we? We're like, oh yeah, we'll do the drunk karaoke thing. But at 6 a.m. tomorrow, you're gonna get a text. And we're like, hey, I want to change my oil? And you do, because you're still thinking about that cherry stem thing. Hoping that'll happen again. But then the list kind of goes on, right? We're like, oh, and by the way, this weekend my parents need a fence put in. You want to help with that? They just have like this 80-acre deal. Oh, and this afternoon, my brother's getting out of prison. Someone with the glass eye and the anger problem. You want to just go with me to get him? Because we want to know if you can do, like while we're dating, if you can do the stuff that we're going to ask you to do for the next 50 years. See, we have a very strategic approach. You guys need a better HR system, I think. Is anyone doing dry January? Better question, did I just ask a bar full of Pulaskiites if they're doing dry January? Never. I have a lot of friends doing dry January. They're not here. I have a lot of friends who did dry January 1st. They are here. Just the one day. It's tricky. I'm a little worried for my friends doing dry January because February is going to show up. And I think that's going to be rough for them.
22nd is Margarita Day.
Got Margarita Day. It's going to get crazy. I think February is going to steal March's line. They're going to be like, we're coming in like a lion. We're going out like we just got off parole. It's going to be ugly. And the Catholics, you guys have Lent coming up, right? The end of February. So you get like a redo, you get New Year's resolutions 2.0, file an extension. Just got the resolutions on life support, making them work. And you know, if you can't do, like if you can't quit the stuff with the New Year's resolutions and Lent, then you need to find a meeting. Because I think the calendar has helped all it can at that point. I said that I went to school in Milwaukee. I got a degree in teaching. Do we have any teachers here tonight? Thank you for your service, raising our children, educating our children. I tried teaching. I love the classroom stuff, like me learning how to teach, sitting there in a chair with a book. I'm like, this is fascinating. This is great. All right. And then they had me do student teaching. That's where they put you in the classroom with the kids. I think they should do it like boot camp in the military. Like, let's do that stuff first. So people can be like, I don't think so. But the university is like, no, we're going to put that at the end so we can get our money. And then we're going to put you into student teaching. So here's what happened. My student teaching was in a first grade classroom in inner city Milwaukee. Ooh, strong opinions about inner city Milwaukee right now. Here's what happened. First week, great. I'm all singing songs, and we're doing crafts, and everybody's happy. I come back the next Monday. It's after lunch. Little girl named Amelia destroys my teaching career. I'm reading a little story. Amelia locks eyes with me. She brings her finger up. She picks her nose, and she eats it. I quit teaching right there. Amelia wrecked my career. That was an $80,000 booger she picked. It's bad, it was bad. The good news is I got really good at public speaking, and now I can do this. Still paying off those loans. We're working on it. We had a pandemic recently, if you guys are tuning into the news at all. I think it's over. Is it over? Yeah, it's over. It's a super spreader event right now. I feel like, so here's the funny thing about a pandemic. I feel like as a human race, we had some time to prepare. There were other pandemics. There was a 1918 flu pandemic. Don't call it a Spanish flu. Your woke children and that one nephew with the nose ring will correct you. It's just the flu pandemic. And then we had a whole bunch of other stuff. A depression, right? The Great Depression. We had a bunch of world wars. We had the Holocaust. Like, hard stuff happened. And our elders lived through those things. And they tried to tell us, like, hey, you should plant a victory garden. You should save used tinfoil. And we're like, I have Netflix and fruit striped gum. I'm fine. Which makes no sense at all. So here's the weirdest thing to me about the pandemic. We had all this time at home, right? I think we should have done something productive with it. We didn't. I feel like we should have come out of COVID like, oh yeah, I speak Mandarin, how about you? And then your friends would be like, super cool, I learned how to make my own shoes. We did not do those things. Here's what we did do. If you follow Instagram at all, we started to make meat and cheese platters.
Oh, that's true.
That's true, right? So the world is going off the rails. And what did we do? We started squeezing deli items and figs and olives onto a cutting board. This will fix it all. And the weird thing is, so then we had to call it some fancy name, right? What did we call it? You guys know. We're making charcuterie boards. So that's a joke I can only do earlier in the night. If I wait till later, it becomes a field sobriety test. Sir, can you say charcuterie? No, I cannot. I'm gonna need your keys. You're not driving home. So here's the weird thing. We started making something that already existed. We already had meat and cheese platters, but then we called it by a fancy French name like we did something. And you know there's that one uncle who won't say it. He's like, I didn't go serving no damn war to speak French in my house. Clearly a Southern uncle for reasons unknown. And it's like, okay, Uncle Earl, have you ever had an omelet, gone through a buffet, bought a souvenir? Guess what? You speak French. Sorry. Sorry to burst your bubble. So we do this thing, we make these charcuterie boards. I also had COVID, so my memory's garbage. So now I have to consult my notes. It happened, it really happened. I was very sick, and now my memory is garbage. But I do have more material on charcuterie boards. Okay, so here's the weird thing. The other weird thing to me about these boards. We had just gone through a pandemic, right? We are bathing ourselves in hand sanitizer, like it's sunscreen, or drinking bleach, or whatever. And then we create a human bait pile. I said a human bait pile, that's a hunting reference. I don't know if you're hunters. How do deer get CWD? Corn and apples in the yard, right? That is the charcuterie board of the animal kingdom. And we're like, bring it into the house. We'll just all eat in this 2-foot radius. And Uncle Earl's like, yeah. And Uncle Earl can't get a plate. You know, there's that one uncle who's like, I'm just gonna lean over and bite over the board. And then little schnibbles fall down because he can't get mustard on his members only jacket. That can't happen. What do you call the solid version of backwash? Back crumbles? I don't know. So he's eating it like this. It's everywhere. The toilet's still flushing. He didn't even wash his hands when he walked out of there. It's horrible. And yet we live to tell the tale. We're all still alive, so clearly we're fine. I will end on this. So I grew up at the farthest end of the Pulaski School District, out by the Swamigo, Flintville area. If you're familiar. I like that there are people who clap for that area. We grew up going to the new zoo, and now the new zoo is all fancy. When I was growing up, it was one cement strip and all the animals. It's like, here's the lion, here's the tiger, here's the peacock, they're all together. And zoos, this is kind of a controversial topic. Some people are very anti-zoo, very pro-animal, anti-zoo, right? And I kind of don't get, like I really don't get why at all. Because we bring animals in, we give them like a personal chef, a doctor, clean water. I think they have a Facebook page now. And people are like, I just don't like that. Just can't put them in a zoo. Just can't put them in a big open area next to a hot dog cart. Hurts my feelings. Strong opinions. But I always wonder, like, what are the animals thinking of us? Because they don't know that we're not in a cage, is my thought. Like the peacock is sizing up the guy with the khaki pants, thinking, how do they reproduce? You can't mate with those kind of colors. It's never gonna happen. Maybe they reproduce by fission, just burst apart into little tiny humans. The interior monologue of the zoo animal, it's complex, man. And then there's like the tiger who's looking at the dad. You know, the dad with the beer gut and like the 3 diaper bags. And the tiger's like, man, I bet he wishes he was back in the wild. But I bet he sure plays a mean pinball.